Well, hello everybody. I thought I would do a quick little video on why I draw comics for a living. Um, yeah, it's because honestly, people ask me that at shows, and I always come off with the little quippy joke of I like to draw buff guys and hot chicks doing cool stuff, and that is part of it. But a deeper part of it is, um, I always liked to draw as a kid. And whereas most kids get into other things like video games, yes, believe it or not, we had video games back in the 80s. Sure, it was a little Atari and you were playing Pong, but we had them. And so kids got into that stuff, but not this guy. This guy kept wanting to draw. And then I saw Spider Man and his amazing friends, and my little mind was blown. I was like, that's awesome. I want to draw superheroes. And then one day I got off the bus and I'm walking home, passing the 7-Eleven that was on the way home and stopping in. And what caught my eye? This bad boy. That's right. That's right. This comic right here blew my little mind when I saw it on the racks. And I picked it up and I flipped inside, and then I saw this splash page right there. And I was like, what is Captain America doing bursting through a wall? I must buy this. Look how heroic that Captain America is. Everybody has their own version or artist they think of when they think of a character. And when I think of Captain America, boom, Mike Zeck is my Captain America artist. I know what you're saying. What about Jack Kirby? Jack Kirby is great. Don't get me wrong, but that was before my time. My Incredible Hulk artist is Sal Buscema, for instance. I know some people are like, no way, it's Herb Trimpe, or it's or Dale Keown, who was later in the 80s. But when I was buying comics back in the 80s, these glorious titles right here, stuff like this, that's what I think of when I think of my era of buying comic books. And I just loved the books. And when it comes to Captain America, I subscribed to them and I'd get them in the mail. And here are the issues I would get in the mail. These are them. I still own all my Captain Americas that I got in the mail after picking up that one issue 275. And now they reside on my spin rack. So later in my career, I actually met Mike Zeck and John Beatty, and we became friends and are still friends to this day. I got Mike to sign my Captain America 275. Anyhow, I digress. So I just got bitten by the comic book bug by wanting to draw superheroes. I saw an ad for the Kubert School in 1983 in a comic book, and I was like, oh, I got to go to this school. This is a school for comic books. I got to go. My parents were so behind my decision to go that they bought me a desk. Look at that desk. Whoops. Look at that desk. Look at that desk. That is the type of desk my parents bought me and set up in a spare room in the house. And I love that wooden drawing table. And it was years later that I found out one of my heroes, because I went back and started buying back issues when I got into comics. So I was buying stuff, even though I started in 83 with that Captain America, I went back into the 70s. And then I discovered that Jack Kirby, the Jack Kirby, look at that, had a wooden drawing table as well. That is Jack Kirby's studio. No computers, no electronics, just paper, pencil, and his imagination. And that is what I love about comic books. As a comic book artist, you're not just drawing heroes. You have to draw ordinary people. You have to be able to draw everything. Cars, trucks, buildings. You have to make stuff up, spaceships. The great thing about comic books and being a comic book artist is there's no budget. Like in a movie, you're like, well, we can't do that. That would blow the budget. In comic books, there is no budget. It all comes from up here onto the paper. And as my journey wanting to draw comics continued. I'd go to my local library, and what book did I find in my local library? Oh yeah, How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. I've got a hardcover copy of it, beat the crap, torn, the dust jacket's torn and ripped up, but I don't care. I love that book. I didn't buy it when it first came out in 1977. I was checking it out from my local library, and like 2 weeks later when it was due, I would take it in to turn back in and be like, can I check this out again? And they'd go, yeah, it's not on anybody's want list. Go right ahead. I'd check it out again until I could afford to buy my own copy. So I still have that hardcover copy of my own. I've got a softcover copy. And hell, I was in this store called Five Below recently, and they had and Five Below is a store where everything's $5 or less, and they had a $5 copy of it with a blue cover. So I bought that. I love that book. So I went to the Kubert School, got into comics in 1991. I've been so fortunate to work for Marvel Comics, DC Comics, Image Comics, Valiant Comics, Valiant Acclaim, whatever, CrossGen, some other small independents doing covers. I've done some advertising work. I love my job. But you know what? Times change, and the heroes that I drew in the 90s and early 2000s, I don't recognize them anymore. I don't recognize, and I'm not talking about the visual look. Yeah, some of the costumes have changed and stuff. I don't necessarily think for the better. I mean, I'll be honest. I love the Marvel movies, but now the costumes in the comics have more detail and stuff on them with buckles and junk like that to kind of almost look like the movies. And when I draw Captain America, one more time, that's the Captain America I want to draw. I got in the business, like I said, to draw big dudes and hot chicks who basically have costumes painted over their anatomy. I don't want to draw realistic comics. I don't want to draw characters that are like average height, like 6 heads high. Heroes are supposed to be 8 heads high and look very heroic and just, larger than life. Comic books are escapism, and that is what I want to do. So that is why I'm doing First Man. First Man is my book. It's my creation. I created him back when I was like 12 or 13 years old. If you have a copy of my drawing book, Drawing Dynamic Comics, right here, featuring First Man, Penumbra, and Monarch, you will see in the introduction to the book that shot of First Man right there. That's the drawing I originally did of him back in the day. Right here. I was like 12 or 13 when I did that drawing of First Man. That guy's been with me forever. And now I want him to be with you guys. And it's because of your support that is allowing me to do my campaigns. First Man 1 was a success. Now I'm working on First Man 2. Right here. See, you can see my sliver of a face. But there's First Man 2. It is a dream come true for me to be able to work on that book. One of the things I liked about comics growing up is in the stories, it seemed like there was this unwritten rule of 2/3, 1/3. And you're like, well, what do you mean? What I mean is, in a 21-page comic book, you might have 14 pages, 2/3, devoted to the hero in costume doing, whatever the story was. And then you might have 7 pages, the other third of them as their alter ego. Because when I buy Captain America, I want to see Captain America. Yes, of course, there's going to be some Steve Rogers stuff in this book. And I'm looking through this one right now to see where there's some Steve Rogers stuff. And there's not a lot, here's a couple pages of Steve Rogers talking to Sam Wilson. the Falcon, but a lot of the book is Cap dealing with whatever the threat was or whatever the story was over the few issues. And that's what I want to buy. Look at this art. These are the type of comics I want to do, and that's what I'm doing with First Man. I look at comics today, and if Captain America is walking around Avengers Mansion, he's walking around in a t-shirt and jeans. I don't want to see Captain America walking around like I wear clothes. I want to see him walking around Avengers Mansion in his uniform, in his costume, because it's escapism. I don't give a crap if that's not real. Whoa, he's off duty. He'd just be wearing regular clothes. Who gives a crap? I want to see him walking around in his costume. There's an issue of Avengers that George Perez drew when I was a kid that had Captain America and I think Miss Marvel at the Avengers Mansion, and they were just walking around shooting the bull in costume. And they were outside and it was snowing, and some kid was like, watch this, and he throws a snowball at him to impress his friends, and Cap's like, bink, blocks it with his shield. They could have been, if that comic was done today, they'd be in t-shirts and regular clothes. We don't want to see that. We want to see the heroes in their costumes as much as possible. And that's what I'm doing with First Man. It all comes back to First Man. So I draw comics. Another reason is when I go to conventions, it's funny because I do sign autographs. My wife and daughter are still like, who would want your autograph? People do. They're comic book collectors. I'm a collector. I don't necessarily collect autographs, but people want to get their comics signed, and seeing the thrill on their faces when they meet their favorite creators, artists, writers, whatever, is awesome. And knowing that as an artist, I can bring that little bit of, joy or happiness to someone, is really cool. I've talked to people that have been like, I was having a bum day. I went to the comic shop. One of your books came out and it cheered me up. I mean, that's really cool. So, I don't take it for granted. I don't take you fans for granted. I can't thank you guys enough for supporting my campaigns and supporting my YouTube channel. I'm going to always try and bring you guys content, whether it's live streaming or book reviews, or me just drawing so you can peek behind the curtain at the creative process. And I hope you'll be right there along with me. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being with me throughout my career and supporting me, and more importantly, for supporting First Man Volume 2. The link is in the description below. Please go back it and show your support. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. Bye, everybody.